Federal Executive Council approves over 20 billion naira for environmental development in Bayelsa and Rivers State.
President Buhari expresses disappointment over the attack on the correctional facility, attributing to failure of intelligence.
Federal government says restructuring of discos will not affect services and stability of the power distribution companies.
Good Morning Nigeria today examines issues arising from the attack on Abuja Correctional Center.
In recent years, Nigeria has witnessed many jailbreaks in different parts of the country, but especially since October 2020, when the NSAS protests were on, hoodlums took advantage to attack at least 3 correctional services facilities in Edo and Ondo states, and they released well over 2,000 inmates, killing security agents manning the facilities. And since then, the country has continued to witness more incidents of jailbreaks, with at least 6 of them being successful, although a number of the inmates voluntarily returned to the prison yard.
Right, and the latest is the attack on the Abuja Custodial Center, where more than 600 inmates were initially said to have escaped, among whom are members of Boko Haram terrorist group. More than 300 of the decampees, or rather escapees, have been rearrested, while efforts to continue to get other escapees is in progress.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari visited the Kuje Correctional Facility yesterday, and he expressed his disappointment at what happened, attributing it, first of all, to the failure of intelligence at the correctional facility. Now, well, also may recall that the Kuje prison, as it was previously known, was established in 1989 with a minimum and maximum holding cell capacity where inmates are incarcerated. Now, it is noted for holding high-profile offenders, including former governors and ministers.
Well, many factors, including a quick nature of some penal codes, delay of justice, obsolete infrastructure, and increase in crime as a result of poor economy and political crisis, have been ascribed to to be responsible for jailbreaks in Nigeria. Others include overcrowding of inmates. For example, the Ikoyi prison, built in 1955 for a capacity of 800 people, now accommodating approximately 3 times that number. And in addition to that, absence of security surveillance system to ensure monitoring by security personnel and conducive working environment of officers at the facility are also identified as inhibiting factors for quick response. Now, what is the situation of things at the Abuja Custodial Center? What can be done to stem the tide of jailbreaks? And how safe are citizens considering the profile of escaped inmates still at large? These are some of the things that will be x-rayed as we bring you another edition of Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And Kirian, of course, we also have to remember that for a long time, the prison or the correctional facility at Kotun Karfe, that's just by Lokoja, Kogi State, was the scene of repeated attacks by outsiders who were often referred to as elements of Boko Haram. They usually would storm the yard and then free some of their colleagues who were in there. And then the incident that that happened on Tuesday night here in the Federal Capital Territory has also, in the first instance, been attributed to elements who belong to the terrorist group. But as been indicated earlier by Kirian, no fewer than 64 of them were freed, and they are said still to be on the loose.
And they mastered their strategy so well that when they execute it perfectly down.
Well, that's the embarrassment that President Muhammadu Buhari was referring to. We shall, of course, get guests to examine the ramifications of these jailbreaks and why this happened right under the nose of the seat of government in the Federal Capital Territory. In addition to that topic, we'll be examining the Osun governorship election campaigns ahead of the polls next week. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program, live as always from our headquarters studios in Abuja. We'll have our complimentary segments as always in the course of the program, and those segments include business and sports. For now, here's Musbao Dan Wahab, who has the highlights of the morning news. Morning, Musbao.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. The news. The Federal Executive Council has approved about 22.5 billion naira to development of facilities in Bayelsa and River States aimed at improving the environment. Also have a Federal Executive Council's meeting. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Siva, says with the ongoing rehabilitation of the nation's refineries, the end is in sight for fuel scarcity in the country.
By approving the award of contract for consultancy services for the design of Center of Excellence for Environmental Restoration with an integrated contaminated soil management center.
The 7 newly appointed ministers have been sworn in to fill existing vacancies in the Federal Executive Council created by the departure of those who resigned to pursue political aspirations. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed the ceremony, charged the new ministers, both new and old, to totally eschew corruption, warning that if caught, there will be no sacred cows. The new appointees have already been assigned portfolios following a minor cabinet reshuffle announced by the president.
Indelible legacies for Nigerians and ending strongly with verifiable accomplishments.
Well, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed serious disappointment over the recent attack on Kuje Correctional Facility, attributing it to failure of intelligence. The president made his feelings known while speaking to NTA News after a fact-finding visit to the facility. Gunmen suspected to be Boko Haram terrorists launched a ferocious attack on the correctional facility in the early hours of Wednesday and freed inmates. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari is in Dakar, Senegal, head of the International Development Association for Africa Summit scheduled for Thursday. The summit is aimed at driving a resilient recovery for countries hit by climate change, COVID-19, insecurity, and more recently, the war in Ukraine. The International Development Association, an institution of the World Bank, earmarks $93 billion for its 20th replenishment cycle coming into effect from the 1st of July this year to the 30th of June 2025. At the high-level event, President Buhari is expected to join other African leaders in an open dialogue on development challenges, priorities and initiatives aimed at charting the way forward for the transformation of the country's economies. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, speaks on the significance of the summit for Nigeria.
Here in Dakar, in order to agree on a robust and a sustainable plan, strategy, for growing from the unprecedented large sum of $93 billion the IDA is offering.
There are 3 African leaders, including the host President Macky Sall of Senegal and Umaru Sissoco Embalo of Guinea-Bissau, have visited the Nigerian leader to commiserate with him over the demise of the Secretary General of OPEC, Mohamed Sanusi Barkindo. They individually described his death as a great loss to Africa and prayed God to grant him eternal life and Nigerians the fortitude to bear the loss. To enhance security and promote peace in the state, especially in southern Kaduna, the state government has inaugurated an early warning and response strategy committee. The committee is expected to identify areas of friction among diverse communities in the area and work towards resolving them to engender even development of the state. Federal government is reassuring electricity consumers that the recent changes in the governance structure of 5 electricity distribution companies will not affect the ongoing reforms and initiatives in the power sector, including the National Mass Metering Program. A statement by the Minister of Power, Abubakar Ali, explains that the changes are as a result of the receivership of the core investors in Kano, Benin, Kaduna, and Ibadan distribution companies, whereas the Action Import Harcourt Distribution Company is to provide much needed liquidity and prevent the insolvency and risk of collapse of a utility. While federal government says it will continue to hold 40% equity stake in all electricity distribution companies, the utilities are still led by the private sector. Bureau of Public Enterprises and the Central Bank of Nigeria state that the exercising the rights of the lenders to be co-investors, the financial institutions do not retain the ownership of shares and management of the distribution companies, as timelines for exits of the banks will be prescribed by the regulators. The federal government assures that in implementing the changes, the Ministry of Power will ensure that the changes in corporate governance do not impact on the service and stability of the distribution companies. And that's a bit of the news for this morning. We'll have more for you in the course of the day. Join us again.
All right, thank you for staying with us on the program. And now to business news. The Securities and Exchange Commission pledges collaboration with their counterparts in West African sub-region to protect investors and achieve efficient security markets. Let's now join Kunle Adeye for details.
Registration of 21 derivatives contract on the Nigerian Exchange Limited and FMDQ Securities Exchange Limited, and the successes recorded on the full dematerialization of share certificates in the Nigerian capital market as some of the success stories driving interest into the Nigerian capital markets by other nations. And this time, it is the Ghanaian Securities and Exchange Commission that has come calling. The Securities and Exchange Commission emphasized that the successes didn't come without challenges, but were surmounted.
We recognize the importance of coordination and cooperation concerning issues of common regulatory interest in order to mature market innovation and fair competition, as well as to promote efficiency and regulatory oversight within the West African region.
The visiting Ghanaian capital market officials are quite categorical that they are in the country to learn from Nigeria, which has a bigger landscape on the capital market, and with the intention to collaborate on strengthening the capital markets in the ECOWAS sub-region.
The Ghana Stock Exchange Master Plan has 4 key pillars to help us achieve the vision of a deep, efficient, diversified and well-regulated capital market with a full range of products attractive to both domestic and international investors.
The expectation is that the partnership will see to the extension of the implementation of sound initiatives of the Nigerian Capital Market Master Plan to Ghana. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business package. Coming up next for us now is Newspaper Review.
Bayo Toyabi is already here with us in the studio. Bayo, good morning and welcome. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have two newspapers. Kieran's got The Nation, I have the Daily Sun, but there are other papers, but we're taking these two, and as can be expected, the lead story is on the attack on Kuje prison here in the nation's capital. That's the lead story. The papers couldn't have captured this yesterday in their productions because the attack hadn't become public knowledge at the time they went to bed. Aftermath of Kuje prison attack. That's the kicker for the Daily Sun. We're beginning with the Daily Sun. Aftermath of Kuje prison attack. Fears in Abuja over Boko Haram inmates escape. It says minister says 879 prisoners on the run, 443 other recaptured, 4 confirmed dead, 16 injured, although another account says that 5 persons were being confirmed dead, 4 of them inmates and then an officer of the civil defense. Now 16 injured. Attack outcome of government's refusal to listen to my advice. That's according to Sheikh Gumi. Now you have details of this story on pages 6 and 28 of the Daily Sun, and the photographs you see there on the front page, of course, from the aftermath of the attack. Now let's go to an earpiece beside the nameplate. Obi replies Kwankwanso on link to IPOB. 2 riders reminds NNPP presidential candidate of activities of Boko Haram, bandits and kidnappers in the north. It says agitations product of leadership failure. 2 abducted Catholic priests in Edo regain freedom. And then we now come to the first column, which is pretty busy with a number of headlines. But quickly, let's take the second lead story close to the foot of the front page. U.S. raises the alarm on possible spike in crime and terrorist attacks in and around Abuja. I'm disappointed at our intelligence system, Buhari declares after visiting Kuje prison. Impeachment. Court fixes July 26th for judgment in suit filed by Deputy Governor. Oyo Assembly directs CJ to set up investigative panel. President reshuffles cabinet, assigns new ministers' portfolios. NLC reiterates call for upward review of worker salaries. Ekweremadu, court orders NIMSI to submit the UPBO's biodata to AGF. That's Attorney General of the Federation. Governors lament dwindling inflow into FARC. Warn they may soon not be able to pay workers' salaries. Here.
I like that story you just read now. Okay. We go to the Nation newspaper. The Nation, above the name flag of the newspaper. Barkindo was a national asset. Buhari mourns OPEC chief buried in Yola. That's on page 5. Abductors again threaten to kill train attack victims. That's on page 6. Now, I will make a difference, says Umana. New ministers resume. The story is captured on page 5. Now, just below the nameplate, we have Oshu 2022. Buhari gives flag to Oyetola, PDP candidate absent at debate. Adeleke promises council autonomy. Vote buying won't determine outcome, says APP candidate. These are the riders to that. And again, federal government, petrol scarcity will linger until food regulation. 2.3 trillion metric tons imported in 7 years, says customs. We import in excess, according to the NLC. The story is captured fully on page 4. And of course, the further story is that of the one Kinsley just read, and that's the aftermath of the Kuje prison attack. And of course, they gave some figures which perhaps may conflict with the figures given by the other national daily. So there may be no need to actually go to that. But of course, below that is a recaption. Kuje prison, 64 Boko Haram suspects escape after attack. With the rider, ISWAP claims responsibility. I am disappointed in the intelligence system, says Buhari. Abba Kyari, Darie, Nyame, others safe. Now, at the bottom of the paper, Petard pays 40.3 billion pension arrears in 7 years. It's on page 8. Boris Johnson under pressure to quit. That's the British Prime Minister. The story is on page 30. Let's bring him by now.
Yeah, thank you, Kirian. Well, the story about the invasion at the Kuje medium security prison have dominated the story. From the briefs, it was indicated that about 750 of the Kuje inmates medium security center fled, although some of them have been recaptured. The brief was provided by Mr. President when he visited by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Interior, Shuaib Belgore, as well as the Controller General of the Correctional Services, Mr. Haliru Danbaba. After being shown around, President Muhammadu Buhari asked questions. I am disappointed with the intelligence system. How can terrorists organize and have weapons, attack a security installation and get away with it? He was accompanied by the Chief of Staff and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Soon after, the President departed for Senegal, where he is attending the summit of the International Development Association for Africa. Meanwhile, indications are that the attack is claimed by terrorists of the Boko Haram group. In fact, the initial attack at the correctional center was repelled by security men. In the process, one civil defense officer unfortunately paid the supreme sacrifice. 3 of the terrorists were also killed, and 4 inmates were also killed.
Okay, but we are going to review that in the program proper, but what attracted my attention to what you have just read is the fact that what we've read so far is that ISWAP claimed responsibility for that, and now people are talking about Boko Haram. I thought there's a difference between the two groups. Are they collaborating in terms of carrying out operations?
From the correctional center, they put the blame at Boko Haram's setting. And when the initial attempt failed, the second attempt was to break down the wall with heavy explosive. And they went straight to the records office, burnt it, and then went to the cell where the terrorists were, and were able to free some of them there. I think they said there were about 67 of them that were being held, and about 64 of them had been freed.
And they went to records office.
Now the claim there is paid by Boko Haram, but the go in between Tukur Mamu, who has been involved in the negotiating, had also indicated that earlier he had provided intelligence indicating that ISWAP was making moves to also secure their people have been. So he is claiming that ISWAP is also involved.
Well, I think that there are many perspectives to this very unfortunate incident that happened on Tuesday night in the Federal Capital Territory. But for me, in terms of our newspaper review this morning, perhaps the biggest story is the President's comment when he visited the Kuje Correctional Center. And his comments have been widely reported. Let me just restate it. How can terrorists organize, have weapons, attack a security installation, and get away with it? For me, this will be the terms of reference for an inquiry into what happened at the Kuje prison. There's nothing else that you need, because the President also expressing his displeasure at the intelligence community is the first time the President is making this comment with regard to his disappointment. I'm sure it's persons or analysts had in the past freely commented on the fact that there appear to be no synergy amongst the many security and intelligence agencies and so on and so forth. But for the President to say that is disappointed, I mean, tells you that this is something. So answers have to be provided to the queries raised by the president. And it is not just a matter of providing answers, in my view. There has to be responsibility. There has to be somebody, there has to be responsibility for
attacking terrorists are reported to have gone to the correctional center via motorcycles, and they went there in batches and in groups.
But why are we even saying all this? This is not the first one. This is not the second or third or fourth. It's not even the 10th. It's more than 13 times that we've had this kind of attack on correctional centers. So it talks about, it's even related, we begin to talk about a failure of surveillance or failure of intelligence. It's been failing all this while because they were all successful in most of the attacks that they carried out in other parts of the world.
The sad thing, among the terrorists that are said to have been released were those who were complicit in the bombing of Mandalay Church and Nyanya bombing in 2014. They've been up there all this while.
Okay, now the question that's why I say that, look, Kirian, I don't understand the point you are making. The president is saying that, look, he's not happy with what intelligence is doing. So, and that arises. So, look, what is the purpose of intelligence? If anybody, look at this again. The attack was said to have gone on for 30 minutes minimum. And you were saying there was no reinforcement from anywhere. How long will it take, for instance, to drive at night time from the capital city, that's to say the city center, to Kuje, to one of those guys? So I think there are, just a minute please, I think there are a number of issues that need to be looked at, and more importantly, the whole essence of security. Is it regime protection or for national security?
This intelligence has been failing. We feel that the Kaduna Abuja rail line, it failed there. It failed elsewhere before this one. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's been failing all this while. And again, when the Kaduna Abuja rail attack happened, he said that there was intelligence report, but it wasn't adhered to. So these are the things. This has always been what's been playing out with respect to security in the country since these Boko Haram people have started attacking cities. But that's what it means. They have access to the city at present, and all of them are missing.
Dr. Muhammad Sanusi Barkindo was laid to rest yesterday after funeral prayers at Yola. He died Tuesday evening. His death came as a shock to everybody in the nation, particularly Mr. President, who he visited on Tuesday morning, has expressed shock. And he says that Nigeria and the world, in fact, has lost a gentleman who is, in fact, an asset, a national asset, and an asset to the international community when it comes to his role in the international oil market. One will recall when he was recounting his tenure that the challenge he had was when oil price dropped to minus $38, and therefore you had to pay buyers in dollars before they will take your oil. And then he also was happy on the successes that they attained and rejigged everything around, and they have been able to improve the industry. Unfortunately, he died suddenly Tuesday evening. May his soul rest in peace. Meanwhile, 7 new ministers that was approved by the Senate were yesterday sworn in and assigned their portfolios.
Yeah, well, let's see. One of them said that he's going to make a difference. I hope all of them should make a difference. Yes, in their various ministries. All right, that does it for newspaper review today. We thank Bayo Tebi once more for being here. Thank you. See you again tomorrow. You are watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for staying with us up to this moment. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, of course, we have two topics to deal with today on the program. And first is the attack on Kuje Correctional Center, and after that, of course, we will view the upcoming election in Osun State. Stay with us.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, to kickstart our conversation on the attack on the Kuje Correctional Center here in the nation's capital, let's listen to this background report put together by Garba Muhammad Natala, our correspondent.
Barely few hours into midnight on Tuesday, 5th July, Custodial Center in Kuje Area Council of Abuja came under heavy attack by unknown gunmen, freeing at most 600 inmates. 64 out of the inmates were said to be Boko Haram terrorists. President Muhammadu Buhari was on ground for a fact-finding visit to assess the level of attack on the custodial center.
The most disappointing thing is the intelligence system. How can the terrorists or whoever they are organize themselves, have weapons, come and attack this high security facility and get away with it?
Minister of Defense Bashir Magashi explained that normalcy had since returned after security agencies intervened. Meanwhile, the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Interior, Shuaibu Belgore, says about 443 out of 994 inmates in the facility escaped. But more than 300 inmates have been rearrested, putting the total number of returning inmates at about 600. Available data showed that there were about 15 successful of such attacks in the last 5 years. At least 5 prisons have been attacked in the last 18 months across the country, those of Jos, Oyo, Kaba and Uweri. Then how will security agencies tackle such large scale of security breaches in Nigeria and also deal with criminality? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria shall examine these and other issues of insecurity.
All right, joining us here in the studios now to discuss issues arising from that incident, let's welcome the Corps Commandant General of the Neighborhood Enlightenment and Safety Organization, whose focus is on counter-terrorism and forensic investigation. He's Dr. Sani Aliu. Dr. Aliu, we're glad to have you with us in the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Our regular security analyst is right here with us in the studios, and he's Dr. Kabir Adamu, very well-known security risk management expert. Dr. Adamu, glad to have you this morning.
The pleasure is mine. Good morning. Thank you.
All right, and joining us via Zoom from Oshobo is the media advisor to the Minister of Interior, Shola Fashure. Shola, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, gentlemen, you're once again welcome. Let's start this way. How can terrorists organize, have weapons, attack a security installation, and get away with it? What do you make of this?
Thank you, Kirian. In simple terms, it's a reflection of the failure or gaps within our security architecture. When you are analyzing incidents, in most instances, there is very little you can do to influence the decision by a criminal to carry out, or a terrorist to carry out an attack. However, when he carries out that attack, the responsibility and the onus is on the state to ensure that he doesn't succeed and that a message is sent to him so that it becomes deterrence for future occurrences. Now, in this instance, they were bold enough to attempt to attack a high security facility, and not only did that, they were able to carry out that attack successfully and free their members that were in detention. So clearly, a failure in an exploitation of gaps within our security architecture, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kabir Adamu. I would like the media advisor to the Minister of Interior, Shola Fashure, to come in here. He's with us via Zoom. He was introduced a while ago. Tell us, we haven't heard or seen the Honorable Minister of Interior. The President was there, the Minister of Defense was there, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Interior was also there. Where is the Honorable Minister?
What I heard from you last is that I haven't heard from the Minister of Interior. We have actually. Let me just make this clarification. The Minister of Interior is the supervising minister over 4 agencies in the ministry. It's the Nigerian Immigration Service, Federal Fire Service, Security and Civil Defense Corps, and of course the Nigerian Correctional Service. The minister is not the one doing the day-to-day running The minister is more of a policy person over them. Of course, when a situation like this happen, unfortunate one, the ministry works very well with the agency concerned, and in fact, not just that agency, but other agencies in the country, security agencies, intelligence agencies, on what can be done. As we speak, I'm sure you followed the news. The whole of yesterday, the government has released all their security infrastructure, like 100-meter radius from the venue where that thing actually happened. They've been combing the adjoining area, and that's why they've been able to retrieve some of the escaped prisoners, and they are still at work using helicopters and all the other resources available to them. Here, as much as important, what we want to bring back all the inmates that escaped, and also arrest the perpetrators and make them to face justice. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Fashure, thank you. You have not answered my question. I'm fully aware of the structure of the Ministry of Interior. The President of the Federal Republic, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, was at the scene of that incident on his way to Dakar. The Honorable Minister of Defense was also there, and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Interior was also there. I just asked a simple question: where is the Honorable Minister of Interior? If there are reasons that you may not wish to disclose, that's understandable.
Okay, that the minister to Nigeria, he went for an official function outside the country when the incident happened, and I cut short his. In the next couple of hours, I'm sure he should be landing in Nigeria. Now you said that you saw the permanent secretary and all the other relevant, the CG of correction was there, and all other government functionaries was there.
Okay, once again, Fashure, thank you. I don't know where you're staying. Let's see whether you can have a little light, on your face, so that we can see you much better. Or perhaps you could also relocate, as the case may be, if it's possible for you to do that. Okay, now back to the studio. Dr. Sani Aliyu, what do you make of the entire incident, and of course how the security architecture of Nigeria reacted to the incident?
Well, unfortunately, Nigeria is running an archaic security system where there is just a reactionary security base. It's not a proactive security base. The world has far gone away from that level to proactive security operations. It is sad that most of these things that happens, usually intelligence reports have been given 2, 3, 4 weeks before they happened, and any actions. These are actionable intelligence given, and actions are not taken. And the problem we are having in this country is that even though Nigeria is the second most terrorized country as it is today after Afghanistan, we don't have any agency that is created and mandated by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to counter terrorism. In this way, it is very difficult for you to hold any agency responsible. If you look at the purview of the military, it is to protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria. Constitutionally mandated. The police maintain peace and order. There is no one single agency in Nigeria that is mandated to tackle the most dreaded beliefs that is running this country down as terrorism. So, giving and profiling and giving intelligence, they fall in an open corridor. No one can be held responsible for his actions or inactions. So in this regard, you can see Mr. President lamenting that is the failure of security or of intelligence, and of course limiting it to within the correctional center. It is, even though there is intelligence, who do you give that intelligence to? Who is that person that is expected to deal with the situation? The military, they are just helping. You just drafted them in. Take for instance, this 9/11 that happened in America. Americans have militaries, they have all sorts of agencies, but yet they went back to their drawing board because of the alien kind of offensive that happened to them in 9/11, and they come up with a homeland security, and again we braced up FBI and make the number one FBI agenda to pursue these terrorists anywhere they are and to locate them, and to make a stopgap between them entering into the American society.
Yeah, but all those things didn't require an amendment to the American Constitution.
Of course.
The laws.
Of course.
But we also have laws establishing the broad range of institutions, including the DSS, for instance, as is now known, and then several of the agencies that are in the Constitution, the police and the military in particular, they have their respective arms that deal with intelligence and broad security issues. And as these matters manifest or unfold, they are also supposed to be dynamic. Isn't that the case?
Of course, they are supposed to be dynamic, but if you look at the unhealthy interrivalry within the agencies, it's one serious problem. I think it's high time all the agencies, including the military, start focusing on one item, that is Nigeria. We must save our country. And stop on all this interagency unhealthy rivalry. Because sometimes you carry, DSS might even give the military intelligence, and they look at them, we have our military intelligence, so what it's all about. So all this inferior and superiority complex should stop. Nigeria is suffering, is the one receiving, at the receiving end, suffering, and people are dying. The system is collapsing, and we shouldn't allow all this unnecessary and unhealthy rivalry to make our system collapse. So we must go back to our drawing board. We must reconnect. The National Security Advisor must be able to coordinate and ensure that this whole unhealthy rivalry comes to an end.
Okay, Dr. Kabir Adamu, are you buying into what he said? Because if I understood him, he's saying that Nigeria does not have an agency specifically tasked with the responsibility of fighting terrorism. If they could be drafted from the Army, the Air Force, Navy, or police, as it may be, I don't know. But I think his idea is that all agencies, they're all under security purview. Yet, when it comes to situations like this, you won't hold any agency responsible, particularly responsible for the failure.
So it is not the absence of a framework. We do have a framework for countering terrorism. In fact, we have a national counter-terrorism strategy. We've had that strategy as far back as 2014, and I think it was reviewed in 2016. In fact, we have a coordinator counter-terrorism. So both the framework and the office that is managing the framework are domiciled in the office of the National Security Advisor. There's an individual, a retired, I think, Navy commander, that is heading that unit. So again, it's not the absence of a framework, rather the implementation of that framework. How have we taken that strategy and operationalize the requirements of that strategy? That, I think, is where the gap is. So to give you an example, in May this year, the parent body, Islamic State, launched a campaign where it urged all its affiliates across the world to release their members that are in detention. That was a flag that should have made every country where you have active IS affiliates to sit up. Immediately after the March incident where the train was attacked, and part of their demand was their membership that were in detention should be released, it should have told us that perhaps the Nigerian affiliates were buying into the global campaign. So I'm giving you that example to show it was at that point that this coordinator of counterterrorism should have raised tasking orders to all the agencies that were mentioned earlier on to say, okay, the IS has launched this campaign. We have members of this group in detention in logically about 3 places. What is the security level in those places? Do we need to increase the security level? Agency A, this is your responsibility. B, this is your responsibility. Now, again, at some of the council meetings, I think that the joint intelligence board meeting, I'm hoping that these are the kind of things that they would have discussed at that level. So it's a multifaceted and multi-level approach that I'm hoping, based on the presidential lamentation yesterday, the administrative machinery around Mr. President will pick up that lamentation, develop tasking orders and operational requirements to all of the agencies, and conduct an investigation to identify the failures, because there are failures clearly that made Mr. President to lament.
Dr. Dema, I'm not bossing you. We are going to continue. If I understand what he was saying, you have already concurred to the idea that there is already a framework that has been in place for counter-terrorism under the National Security Advisor. Who are his foot soldiers? Is it the army? Is it the police? Are there personnel of these agencies who have been drafted specifically to counter terrorism? Or is it when something happens, okay, police, give me a number of men. Are they drafted for that purpose? I think that's what he is trying to.
So the strategy provides a broad framework on how to counter terrorism, and it gives roles and responsibilities to every element in government, every element, including the military that we mentioned. But the reality in Nigeria is that certain elements in government have taken responsibility for all the roles. I can give you several examples, and I get where the frustration is coming from. But the reality is that we have abandoned the strategy to an extent, and we are going ahead without necessarily looking back to say, are we on course with the implementation of that strategy? If what he is asking for, as an example, is to have a single body that would be fighting terrorism, we don't have that. We do have the strategy which gives responsibilities to different organizations, but unfortunately there is no uniting element, as it were, to ensure that that objective of that strategy is being met. I'm not aware that within the span of 6 years since that strategy has been implemented, we've ever done a review to see whether we're on course or we're not on course. In fact, I'm sure you bear me witness that it's very rare for the coordinator of counterterrorism to actually issue statements on progress on the implementation of that strategy. So while I can relate with his frustration, I just wanted to make the correction that we do have a framework.
A framework, yeah. But Dr. Sani Aliyu, yeah, what's your response?
Framework is not an actionable operational delivery system. You just have like a two-place paperwork. Have you ever had Mr. President or anybody hold that coordinator responsible for any of these failures? Well, what we are saying, take for instance, we're in this country when Anini was disturbing Nigeria, and IBB was clear. He called the IGO of police. He said, yes, Anini, that is holding him responsible for the failure of not delivering Anini at the right time. So what we are saying, there should be a head of the organization called counter-terrorism organization, like Nigerian Army, like Nigerian police. If there is such nonsense that happened in Kuje, that person should be held responsible and should be dealt with. President just lament. What actions? Who is getting the bump? Who is to be blamed? Who is to be held responsible? Who is accountable for that failure? Nobody.
Well, the reality is that we have a coordinator, and that coordinator is being paid money from our...
Coordinator doesn't have a full soldier. It's just like an army without a general.
No, but are you saying that we should also now have a special force that will be parallel to, say, the police, the DSS, and the military in dealing with counter-terrorism. I mean, is that you want to create another bureaucracy for that?
Just take for instance now. It's a simple illustration. Is vandalism of national critical national installation more dreading than the than terrorism? When we disturbed, Olusegun Obasanjo, then the president of Nigeria, quickly looked into these NGOs that were on ground and saw civil defense and adopted civil defense and gave them that responsibility to protect the critical installation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which they have been achieving so. Now Nigeria is the second most terrorized country in the world. Millions of deaths. No any new strategy to what we are saying is that we need special force that will be wholly responsible, that are trained to go and do this thing. Yeah. The military is not trained for counter-terrorism. It's not trained. That is not their purview. The police are not trained for counter-terrorism, because it's not only going to fight war that is about this terrorism. There's a lot of funding, special areas funding. We have to understand that terrorism is international, is transnational, is domestic, is national, and in all these connectivities, there are serious areas of activities that doesn't even need you to carry arms. It doesn't need you to carry arms. You make sure you go and stop this thing before it even come to this country. That is what the FBI is doing around the world, stopping it before it gets to America. So where is the agency that is doing that in Nigeria?
Let me come in.
Dr. Adamu, I know you want to comment. Let's clarify something. You have said it on at least 2 or 3 occasions since you've been responding to our questions, that Nigeria, after Afghanistan, is the second most terrorized country in the world. I don't know the basis for that claim, but you also said that millions have been killed in Nigeria. That's not correct. Thousands, yes. Millions displaced, yes. Dr. Kabir Adamu.
Yes, the most authentic data set for terrorism death is the Global Terrorism Index, and Nigeria is currently occupying number 6. So just to buttress the point you made, Nigeria is not the second most terrorized country in the world. I wanted to just clarify what he was saying. Sure. The strategy has a component called countering violent extremism, and in my previous appearances in your platform, I have discussed extensively what that aspect is. So I want to make it clear that we do not lack the know-how and the strategy for countering terrorism. In fact, our CVE and counterterrorism strategy was taken to the United Nations by the current DG World Trade Organization when she was the Minister of Foreign Affairs then, if I remember. She went to the GA, presented that strategy, and it was commended by the entire members of the UN. So what we have is a globally endorsed approach. The absence is the implementation, and that is what I want you to understand. Take your time, study that strategy, see the role of every agency in government, including you and I. Where the gap has been, if that document, that strategy has not been brought to us for us to embrace and to support the implementation. Now, with regards to the absence of accountability within that strategy, that unfortunately is a common feature within our security sector. It's not just specific to terrorism. There are several other aspects of security that if you pick the issue of non-accountability.
Dr. Adamu, thank you indeed. And the position of Dr. Sani Aliyu, for me, is that you have a beautiful plan. You have a strategy, you have a framework, and the non-implementable framework. It appears that it will also be non-existential, because it does not work operationally. That's what he's trying to say. But if you now have a direct responsibility to say, look, this is your job, right? And it will make a lot of difference, because they'll be trained based on that.
Now, Kirian, the challenge is this. Every year within our budget, we do have set out money for.
The situation has come that Nigeria has been terrorized for over 10 years now. So there should be a paradigm shift. That's what he's trying to say. There should be a paradigm shift in terms of constituting counter-terrorism, strategy. New strategy has to come in place. That's what he's trying to say.
Let's throw this in as well. Assuming you were to create this special counter-terrorism unit or block, how do you deal with interagency rivalry that he himself raised and we all know about? So an attack happens, you say no, it's counter-terrorism unit. That's the coordination element that is missing.
That we have a block does not mean there will be no synergy. If I understand, there will be synergy because we are patriotic. We want to save the country. Okay, let's get back to
no synergy.
or let's get back to Shola Fasula once more. You told us earlier on that efforts are being made, and of course, our men are already in the bush deploying all manner of tactics and strategy to see whether those who have escaped will be recaptured. Lead us more into whatever development has taken place so far. If you know, to what extent have they been able to go with respect to tracking down the escapees and bringing them back to the prison?
The president spoke well yesterday. He asked some questions and he raised some issues. That's the way it's supposed to be. What the president was doing is that the president is assigning responsibilities. He's holding accountable. What we must recognize is the fact that the nation is at war. Look at it. The nation is being buffeted. Child's play. You will recollect in October last year, there was an attack on one of the correctional centers in Abolongo in Oyo State. That was when
all right, we seem to have a freeze on that Zoom connection to Oshogbo. Let's come back to the studios. Well, gentlemen, let's look at this. I know that Dr. Sani Aliyu, you talked about reactive intelligence and sometimes security measures, even though in a good number of cases and instances where the intelligence and security agencies foil plans before they materialize, they never get reported. But the scenario yesterday morning, where you saw a number of armed officers, policemen, military men, and civil defense, and all milling around the perimeter of the prison that's at Kuje after the fact, you have to ask yourself, look, this attack lasted for 30 minutes.
3 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours.
Well, I said 3 hours. So I raised the question when we were doing our newspaper review earlier, because these are some of the things. I mean, in my opinion, the comment by the president, the soundbite, that's the terms of reference for an inquiry. But you have to ask yourself that question: where were these persons who had guns and all kinds of things in broad daylight? Were they sleeping? And if so, what happened? Let's begin with Dr. Damwa and come back to Ali.
Every good security arrangement should be deployed in layers. I'll be careful here not to mention too much, but armed security personnel are just one component of a layer. When Mr. President spoke about intelligence, it's also a component of a layer. We call it the 4 Ds of security, even though one of the Ds is now an R. So detect, deny, delay, and then respond. Now, for every good security arrangement, you must deploy it in these 4 layers. In other words, how come the most conservative estimate, based on the information we have gathered, is about 100 attackers moving on either vehicles or motorbike, moved, I'm using the most conservative, moved from a location, most likely from somewhere in north central Nigeria. The possibility is Kaduna. Moved from there all the way to Abuja, Kuje. They were not detected. That's the first layer.
And now that there's fuel scarcity, they also had fuel in their bikes
to move that distance. Now, second layer, even if let's say they were detected, they were not detected, but based on even the intelligence we've gathered, members of that community detected them, because before every attack, they would attempt first off to gather information or to test the integrity of the security arrangement. Minor incidents, somebody would just come to the gate in an attempt to ask questions or even enter. That's his testing the integrity of that arrangement. Somebody should have picked up that. Then earlier when I spoke about the campaign that was launched by IS to free their members, somebody should have picked up that. Now that's the detection layer. The deny layer, the physical arrangement around the custodial center. I mean, even to a casual observer, if you look at what happened yesterday, granted they attempted to detonate an IED in a part of the world, and because of the integrity of that fence, they were not successful. Now they went to another part of the building, telling me that they have conducted their survey. They knew which part was strong, which one was not strong. They took their time. From what we had, detonated 3 IEDs. Now, again, testing the integrity of the physical security arrangement. Things like lighting, things like towers that should have given advantage to if that tower was manned and the tower had visibility technology to allow long distance view of anyone approaching that distance. Then communication, after you detect, how do you communicate? So all of these layers, then of course delay. In most custodial centers, the first wall is not the wall that will give you access.
Yeah, so that's
there should be like a buffer zone from when you penetrate the integrity of the building to the next one, and then of course before you even reach the building. So all of these are layers of security. Of course, the last one, like I mentioned, is response. So again, if we are conducting an investigation, these are the things that we need to pick.
But these guys appeared to have a mastery of the geography of the prison. The
answer is not difficult to find.
Okay,
inmates have telephones.
Gentlemen,
to communicate.
Did you hear that?
Yes, gentlemen.
Inmates have telephones.
Gentlemen, what has happened is a well-coordinated, planned, and executed attack. They know their way. They knew the records, the office. They burnt it down. I wish we have time for further conversations. But honestly speaking, if I'm as another Nigerian, I want to buy into Dr. Sani Ali's submission that we should have a special force designed for this. Otherwise, these failures will be counted. It's been happening over the years now, and of course, we are beginning to live with it. All right. Dr. Sani Ali, we thank you for coming here this morning. Of course, he is the Commandant General, Neighborhood Enlightenment and Safety Organization, NESE. Thank you for your ideas. Dr. Kabiru Ademo, of course, our own Kabiru. We thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Once again. Via Zoom, we had Shola Fasure from Oshobo. Shola, thank you indeed for being part of our show this morning. All right, we are taking a short break. When we come back, we have a second topic, and that's the Osho governorship election campaigns. Do stay with us. Now, INEC has approved 15 candidates of 15 political parties for the coming 2022 governorship election in Osun State, expected to come up on the 16th of July 2022.
Well, the political parties and their candidates have been on the campaign stump since April the 17th. And campaigns, of course, are expected to be concluded on the eve of voting. That's to say by the 14th of July, all campaigns will cease, as there will be no campaigns 24 hours to the election. Now, how have the candidates fared in their various campaigns? What are the issues in the election? And if we recall, Kirian, the Osun election had some unique attribute to it 4 years ago, when it was one of the inconclusive elections, and we had to have an extra day for the completion of that election. A lot of matters, of course, were thrown up 4 years ago. Are those matters likely to arise again in 2022? two. We have a number of contestants we shall be talking to from time to time, at least before the curtains fall on the campaigns for the Osun governorship election. They will have the agenda and then the issues they believe are pertinent to the vote.
All right. Yes, all right. We have Dr. Goke Omiwodu, SDP governorship candidate via Zoom from Osogbo, and Dr. Akin Ogumbi, Accord Party governorship candidate via Zoom also from Osogbo. Kingsley.
All right, thank you very much. Let's begin with the candidate of the Social Democratic Party, that's Dr. Goke Omiwodu. Dr. Omiwodu of the SDP, tell us, how has it been trying to contest, as it were, against an incumbent who is seeking re-election?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's expectedly been tough, and it's getting tougher because we need to tell ourselves home truth. The incumbent and taking over all the hotels in Osogbo. They have a large influx of people from Borno, from Kogi, from everywhere. I'm talking on authority. These are people that and these are people that obviously.
We seem to be having issues right now, audio-wise, in the connection to Dr. Goke Omiwodu. If I heard him well, he was talking about the influx of persons from different parts of the country occupying all the hotels in Osogbo. Well, maybe when we reconnect with him, he'll be able to expatiate on all that. But now let's bring in Dr. Akin Ogumbi, Accord Party governorship candidate. Dr. Ogumbi, how has it been? Accord Party it seems to be one of the new parties operating in that state, if I'm right. How has it been with the campaigns? All right, we're also having issues with that, Kingsley. Can we reconnect with Dr. Goke Omiwodu? Can we reconnect with him for him to continue? Well, of course, our engineers are working to see how we can get reconnected to our guests in Osogbo. We could see a flash of that. I hope that will stabilize so that the conversation can continue. All right. Okay. I guess that's Dr. Akin Ogumbi of Accord Party. If you can hear me clearly, sir, let us know how it's been going with respect to your campaigns to become the next governor of Osun State.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. It's been very tough, but I can assure you that by God's grace, we are winning it. I've visited over 250 communities as usual. We adopted house to house a campaign, and it has been very effective. Hello. We adopted house to house campaign has been very effective. Our message is very, very clear. It's message of hope. It's message of new beginning for some people. And I've said, by God's grace, as we have in our manifesto, we are creating 100,000 jobs within the first 1 year of our government. We're going to do local government election within the first 6 months of our government, so that development can be even within the state. I looked at what is currently happening now is the fact that Osun is tied down to civil service. There has been no attempt to diversify the economy of Osun, despite the good opportunities and potentials of the state. So we're going to work very well to ensure that all these things are done. If we look at education, it's been very, very backward. In WAEC, we take number 33 and number 34, and it's a function of the infrastructure of the school. We're going to put in good infrastructure. We're going to engage the teachers and ensure that they are well motivated and promoted. And of course, we're going to recruit more teachers for the schools so that we can have teacher-student adequacy, ratio teacher-student adequacy ratio within the school. So there's a lot that can be done to give a new beginning to Osun State. Again, when you look at the mining, our government has licenses. Yes, during the debate yesterday, they said they do fact check, but I still repeat it that we have 5 licenses within Osun State, but I was given by federal government. Instead of the Osun State government engaging internationally respected mining companies, they go along with Chinese artisanal miners. They go along with Chinese artisanal miners. And those Chinese artisanal miners are mining without any recourse to the degradation of the environment. All the rivers have been muddied. Even Osun River that hosts an international event once a year have been fully muddied.
Right.
So
but now that you are calling me with now.
Okay, Dr. Aki Ogubi, maybe you have some of your aides around you there. If they could work on some of the noise interference. Maybe there are other telephones that are buzzing or vibrating around you so that we can hear you more clearly without the noise interference. But let me ask you the same question I asked the SDP governorship candidate. In this election, you have the incumbent governor who is seeking a second and final term. And sometimes it is often said that it's like climbing a mountain taller than Mount Everest to unseat an incumbent. How challenging is this election for you as a candidate?
It is not, there is no challenge in this, because you have a government that has not performed. You have a government that has failed the people. You have a government that has not shown any capacity to work. You have a government that has refused to do everything that can generate income for the state. They have a government that has not done anything whatsoever in the area of income generation. You have a government that has refused to do a comprehensive investment plan around our mining sector to the extent that we can get income from it. You have a government that has failed in education. It was the statistic was clear. For every 100 baht, you have 70 infant mortality rate. There has been no provision of primary health care for the people. So in all aspects, in all ramifications, there is no mountain to clear, because this is a clear failed government. But unfortunately, look at, like my colleague was saying, they have come with all their money. All they have to do is to buy vote. All they want to do is to buy vote. And I keep telling Osun people, don't let sell our vote. The power of governance is in the hand of the people. Don't sell your vote. Vote accordingly. Vote for accord. Vote for a new beginning. So I don't see any mountain to climb. And yet our people are in poverty. They are suffering. They want to take advantage of the people by giving them 10,000-15,000 per vote. But gentlemen, also people, is 15,000 the worth of your life? That's exactly the question. 15,000, is it the worth of your life? And they are shameless about it. You perfect it. Now is running for the number one position in the state. I mean, in Nigeria, went on the podium to say, without vote, there is no more. So also, I just will not go that way. We will ensure that we keep enlightening our people so that they will not take money.
Dr. Ogumbi, we're still staying with you. There's no way all the voters in Osun State will be bought, all things being equal. You could do that in some sections. What I want to ask you now is this, how has the campaign been in terms of your meeting with the people? what should be done to ensure that the people's votes are going to count?
Thank you. Let me first say that INEC has done very well. INEC has fulfilled all righteousness. INEC has said your vote will count. INEC has said people should come out to vote. There is no any reason on the part of INEC for this election. But it is the parties, the candidates, and the parties that are involved that is the issue here now. First and foremost, they are brandishing dollar, pound sterling, euro, and naira. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have money to buy vote. What I have just done is to present my manifesto to the people, which is manifesto of hope, which is manifesto of beginning, and I can't buy vote. That is clear. But for people who want to buy vote, we are appealing to them to say it is illegal, it is against Electoral Act for you to buy vote. Against even moral, there is no moral justification.
Yeah, Dr. Ogumbi, I would like you to elaborate some more on the potential hazard that vote buying poses to the Osun election. Now, only a few weeks ago, we had the Ekiti governorship election. Yes, INEC did their job. There were no incidents of violence, except, of course, the clash before the election that claimed the life of one of the members of the National Union of Road Transport Workers. But what emerged from the Ekiti governorship election was again the phenomenon of see and buy, which is vote buying, which seeks to compromise voters. And in the case of Ekiti, it was particularly surprising to analysts who said that, yes, Ekiti voters are sophisticated, but they succumbed to the lure of lucre, as the point has often been made. How worried are you about the specter of vote buying in the Osun election, and as has been speculated in some quarters that the vote buying will occur, or if not occurring already, days before the election rather than the see and buy on the day of voting?
It's unfortunate again that vote buying is already occurring in Osun State. They have brought all kind of people to the state, from Gaduji to everybody from Borno, from Nigeria, everywhere. Osun is flooded with people, and they are loaded. What we are saying to people is, please don't sell your birthright. But if you train your child, you have 3 of them you train, they don't have job, and then you go and collect
Well, we seem to have a persistent audio problem.
Interference there. I think, we advised him to probably speak to his aides, and that was a hold back from private television so that we can hear him more clearly. And then
what you just mentioned in the course of asking him a question with respect to vote buying, I think the thing has even developed, in fact, I think another dimension to that. Now, buying a day or two before the election. So, what does that mean? How would the buyer now have the confidence that, look, this person I'm giving money today will vote for me tomorrow? Because seeing and voting or whatever,
see and buy
would have been the best option based on the fact that, look, it's on the election day, and
not the best
option,
but that's
for the rigging,
criminal activity.
Yes. The best option for that criminal activity, because if you give somebody money a day before, he could change his mind along the line, or somebody could pay even higher than you have paid.
Well, I think that's an issue. It's a gamble. It will be, because if you recall, in the case of Ekiti, EFCC and other security agencies also moved in. I think a few persons were arrested. One of the last reports I read was that those who were arrested were to be arraigned. And I think at the High Court in Ekiti, or the Federal High Court, depending. But I've not read any additional reports as to what has gone on. But the fact that EFCC officials were around meant that, okay, you could serve as a deterrence to those who were doing see and buy. I mean, we all know how it occurred in 2018.
Yeah,
you will show the ballot paper, so where you thumbprint it, and then you fold and put in the box, and then you go to a corner.
Secret balloting. How would somebody now be able to, if in a cubicle or something? Why would, or is it going to be in the open?
No. The see and buy was for election monitors and observers, who of course are regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria. It is not in every instance. Look, you take the ballot paper, the agent who is disbursing the funds is standing nearby, and all you needed to do will be, after thumbprinting, you just raise it, just flash, so that he sees that it is against the box. So you fold the ballot paper, you drop it in the box, and you come out, but then you collect your money.
What is important to note here is the fact that, yes, vote buying could take place, but you cannot be in all the polling stations, and if people believe
it will be strategic.
But if people believe
because if you have a stronghold, it is in your stronghold that you further mobilize your supporters. Now, if you were to go to maybe the birthplace of another candidate where there is strong support for that other candidate, I mean, it will be a waste. It will be a waste.
So that's why I raise that is because if someone wins in election, I'm not sure you should blame vote buying per se. That could happen, but it may not swing elections on the person's side in terms of the volume of people that will be bought, and that can swing vote to the person who is doing the buying. It may be very difficult. So the important thing is for the governorship candidates to campaign vigorously. I was asking him to explain his experience meeting the people. He said he has been to 250 communities in Osun State, so therefore he must have interactions with people, perhaps hold some
which is good
town hall meetings with people to know their grievances, know what they need and what they're asking the governor to do for them and what have you. It's not enough to say that the incumbent didn't do well. For that's normal campaign strategy.
Of course, you have to minimize the achievements of your opponent, and in order to elevate yourself. But I think that while we're still trying to get the candidates back with us via Zoom, Kylian, one very important point that the Accord Party candidate raised, and I was going to talk about that, but he's further elaborated on it, and I think we can discuss it. It has to do with mining. Osun is rich in gold deposits. Osun is rich in gold deposits. Now, it says that according to the Accord Party candidate, the state has licenses,
about 5 licenses,
and that instead of engaging high-profile or international mining corporations, rather what we are seeing are these artisanal miners
from China.
And these people, they ruin the environment. And what is, again, the other point he made about not just ruining the environment, the land, is the pollution of the Osun River. Yes. That's a serious environmental concern.
And community streams,
absolutely.
Communities fetch water.
Is this an issue in the campaign? You follow? Is this an issue in the campaign in Osun to say, look, our state is being devastated. People are making quick money. Yes, they may be happy, but the heritage that we are going to transfer or bequeath to our children, generations unborn, that heritage is already at risk on account of the uncontrolled exploration and exploitation of gold deposits.
And of course, where does the resource go in terms of the monetary value of what is being gotten from gold mining? Does it have a place in the state's budget? We're supposed to look from mining. We have some amount of money in the budget we're going to use to develop whatever thing you have in mind that is in your policy or in your manifesto as one who wants to run a state. That's a very critical point. And just like you said, these deposits, gold deposits, we have other minerals. In fact, there is no state in Nigeria that does not have 1 or 2 mineral deposits.
That's right.
It is not possible to have a state in Nigeria that does not have one. But of course, another is to explore and exploit, whatever is there for the betterment of of the state. What has been a problem with mining, you remember, we've had that on this program several times, is they'll tell you that the preparations, that it's not easy to engage international mining corporations, because it's a huge project that is capital intensive, and therefore we have been planning, strategizing on how to begin to do expanded and constructive mining engagement in Nigeria for us to now begin to get the resources from that deposit. It is not possible up to today. So when we have issues or program of mining or mining in Nigeria, I get disappointed because we've heard about it over the years. So when are we going to stop planning or strategizing? When do we now go into the practical implementation of what has been strategized on paper or a framework that has been developed on paper? How do we now practicalize and get them implemented for the betterment of the whole nation?
Absolutely. Good question and good issues that you have raised there, Kirian. Now, part of the arrangement between the federal authorities and the state authorities is that the states should and could create special purpose vehicles for the purposes of mining activities. But what they claim now by Akin Ogunbiyi, the Accord party candidate, is that this is not being achieved. And more importantly, where is the revenue from these mining activities going into? Now, it is not just sufficient where we see the Accord candidate back again to us via Zoom. Dr. Akin Ogunbiyi, perhaps you must have caught a bit of the interactions that my colleague and I were having here while your Zoom connection was being sorted out. So tell us again, what are the critical issues in this election? Earlier you spoke about creating jobs and so on and so forth. For the people of Osun State, what are they asking for? And what are they saying that this is what would make them vote?
we have indeed lost contact with him. All right, okay, all right.
We're going to provide 100,000 jobs. How? Number one, agriculture and agri-related industries. We're going to ensure that private partners come in to join us to develop our agriculture. We have to we're going to be ensure that they can produce, increase their productivity while the plantation are going to be put in place. With local government election that we're going to do within 6 months, we'll ensure and make it a policy that each local government have their acreages of cocoa and acreages of oil palm. More than one, I can fruit within very short period of time. I'm a farmer. I currently have a farm. I've been operating it for the past 12 years, and I raise seedling on my farm. And even under experimental arrangement, cocoa fruited in 2 years. So why can't we have new set of plantations that will guarantee cocoa productivity? And we go back to the olden days of Awolowo. Awolowo used cocoa only to deal with everything it has to do within the entire western region. And cocoa is still there lying low. Nothing is being done on it. So we are going to ensure that we work on cocoa, we work on the oil palm, and reduce wages through industries. We can use, what do you call it? We can use, now? Hello? Okay.
Hey, please continue.
We can use partnership with companies, we reduce wastages, and we're going to do roads, rural roads, to ensure that food items can come into the town and make it cheaper. Again, some people are asking for free health. If you are not healthy, everything we are talking about is useless. So we're going to ensure that we give free primary health care to people for type backs, infants up to 8 years, and for adults.
All right, Dr. Ogunbi, we will return to you in a moment. Let's take a short break. The program continues when we return. All right, you're welcome back, and this is Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. We actually would like to appreciate the guests we had on this second segment of our conversation this morning. Dr. Goke Omibodu, SGP governorship candidate, who reached out briefly via Zoom, for Dr. Akin Ogumbe, a Accord Party governorship candidate, also from Oshobo. As a matter of fact, we had some difficulties having clear audio from those two guests. We actually do apologize for that. For now, let's go sports. Super Falcons set to do battle with Burundi for the second group game at the 2022 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, and CAF nominated Super Falcons players for this year's Women's Player of the Year award. Let's join our sports desk for details.
Super Falcons striker Aziza Toshola has been ruled out of the ongoing Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco due to injury. The Nigerian Football Federation disclosed this on Wednesday and also stated that the player is scheduled to travel back to Spain Thursday. Nigeria Super Falcons will hope to bounce back from their defeat to South Africa when they take on debutants and Group C leaders Botswana Thursday evening. This year's WAFCON also doubles as qualifiers for next year's FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Meanwhile, Aziza Toshola entry of our Super Falcons teammates Rashidat Ajibade, Chiamaka Anadozie and Uche Nakanu have been nominated for this year's CAF Women's Player of the Year award. The 4 Falcons players made the 30 women preliminary list released by CAF Wednesday, and in tennis, former champion Simona Halep edged past Amanda Anisimova 6-2-6-4 to reach her third Wimbledon semi-final Wednesday without dropping a set in the tournament so far. The Romania 16th seed, who won the title in 2019, broke the American serve 4 times in the match, wrapping up victory in just over an hour.
All right, now let's go over to the foreign scene for some stories.
The Minister is desperately clinging on to his own fantasy.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is on the brink of a political downturn, with more than 40 members of his cabinet resigning in the past 2 days. Ministers and aides, including senior members of his cabinet, say they no longer have faith in his leadership after a series of scandals, the latest involving an ally accused of improper sexual conduct. This triggered the gradual resignations and letters of no confidence from junior ministers and member parliaments. But Boris Johnson has vowed to stay on. Meanwhile, Russia has threatened to veto a UN Security Council resolution reauthorizing cross-border deliveries of vital aid into opposition-held northwestern Syria. The closure of the last route from Turkey would immediately put more than 3 million people at risk of starvation. The UN says the number of Syrians in need is higher now than at any point during the 11-year civil war, as the toxic mix of years of fighting, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the war in Ukraine have devastated the country's economy.
All right, thank you very much there for stories on the foreign scene, and that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We appreciate you being with us, and again, I apologize for the glitches that we had in the course of the program. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning for another edition of the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kyrian Umayo at Start of Trouble.